Welcome everyone to the Arseholics podcast. Thanks for joining us again. We're recording on the day after an amazing game with so much to talk about against Man City at home on New Year's Day. With me, I've got Aaron in and I've got Mize back as well. So welcome, guys. How are you guys doing?
Yeah, good. Happy New Year to you and all.
Oh, yeah. Happy New Year, guys. Well, I saw Raj yesterday, but yeah, Happy New Year.
And Happy New Year, everyone listening as well. And you know, what a game to start off the new year, guys, wasn't it? Like, I think it was a really interesting mentality that I think we all had when we did our last pod and we did the review of the kind of previous period of games. It was a game when we looked at and thought, oh, do you know what? We've got some points on the board. We're probably going to lose. It would be nice not to lose. And we had some expectations. But did either of you guys think that the game was going to pan out in the way that it did? Did you have any idea that it was going to go that way?
No, not at all. Although I did predict a 2-1 loss.
Yeah, that's true. You did.
I had no, I would have given, I wouldn't have put any money on us losing in this way. And me feeling, I'd love to hear how you guys felt after the game, but how I felt very frustrated. I just expected almost like a routine loss, if I put it that way.
Yeah.
But this was far from it, as I'm sure we'll discuss.
Yeah, absolutely. And just in case you've been living under a rock, obviously Arsenal, we sadly lost. We sadly lost 2-1. It was a game that we went ahead in, and we're going to. It'll be really interesting to chat about that first half and everything around that goal. And then the second half, my God, was just. I mean, I don't know what didn't happen in the second half. Is probably a better way of putting it. But ultimately, Arsenal rocked up without Mikel Arteta. Mikel Arteta had COVID, sadly, and Prince Albert, the assistant manager, took over. Airport Albert, whatever you want to call him these days. And the good news was when we got the lineups out, Tomiyasu was back in the team, and I think that was a huge boost for us. But essentially, the team on paper, we had Ramsdale, we had Tierney, Gabriel, White, Tomiyasu, we had Xhaka and Partey in the middle. We had Odegaard flanked by Saka and Martinelli, and Lacazette up front playing this kind of Firmino false nine sort of role that he's been doing. ESR again on the bench. So, guys, when the lineups came out and you saw that Tomiyasu was back in the team and ESR was still on the bench, just give me some initial thoughts of how you felt about that, Mize.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, Tomiyasu has been exceptional so far this season, and we really do. I guess we haven't really had to notice it too much because he was only out for a game or two, I believe. I can't remember now, but I can imagine that if he's out for an extended period of time, we will notice it because the next option at right back is definitely a drop down in quality. So yeah, massive to have him back. Overall, I was pretty happy with the lineup and happy. It's almost, if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of mentality. Things are working well. The front four are clicking. Goals are coming from sort of everywhere in that front four. So more than happy to sort of for ESR to play that role of having a potential impact off the bench. Obviously, it didn't happen in the way we would have wanted it to yesterday. But team lineup was more than happy. I mean, I know we're going to get into it. I just thought just worth touching on one thing, Raj. We noticed as we were kind of just before the game, we were walking up to the ground, and it was eerily quiet. We both picked up on it. It was eerily quiet, not just in terms of noise, but also in terms of numbers. And we know that it was obviously New Year's Day. It was a worst possible kickoff time, right? So that's obviously going to have a part to play as well as the COVID factor. But even so, it's still a big game, and I was a little bit worried walking up to the ground and kind of going to our seat because there was very little singing, very little noise, and I was thinking, oh God, is everyone kind of, as you said at the start, are we all expecting just to turn up and get thrashed as we normally have been recently against City? But yeah, pleasantly surprised, obviously.
How much of that? So I didn't go, and I think this would be quite interesting to compare our experiences because I watched on TV, and you guys were in the game. But how much of that do you think is just down to the early kickoff itself? Because usually, I hate going to early kickoffs because I think the atmosphere is so flat. Mainly because people haven't had a chance to, have a few drinks beforehand.
Yeah, but it's also, by the way, just so everyone gets the background, Aaron actually didn't realize the game was in London and went to Manchester instead. So Aaron was in Manchester.
I just got lost. Yeah. Of course.
To be honest, I've completely forgot what your question was because I was just teeing up for that.
So I was going to ask, like, how much of that is just down to early kickoff and, the fact that it was New Year's Day, or do you genuinely think people had almost not given us a chance before the game because they were like, this game is a write-off? Because I to be fair, I did think it was a write-off. I thought there is no way we're getting anything from this. City have won 10 in a row, I think, going into the game, and I wasn't optimistic. But to clarify, that's not why I didn't go. Do you think it was just that, or like generally early kickoffs are a bit flat, right?
So this is the thing. This is the really, really, really interesting thing, was that you're completely right with how those two things should link, like the quietness outside the stadium, the quietness building up to the game, and maybe a sort of flattish kind of early atmosphere. But that actually wasn't the case. Those two things didn't end up being connected. It was really eerie that when we were, like Miles was saying, going to the stadium, there just didn't seem to be that many people around. It was almost like have we got here an hour early? It felt like we were there an hour early by accident, and then we sort of walked up, and then the queues were there. The queues were legitimately there. Okay, so that's fine. But when we actually got in the stadium and when we got in our seats, well, there was it just felt like it was a normal big game atmosphere. Actually, like the crowd was really, really good. So maybe it was just that people hadn't been getting tagged up before the game because it was a bit of an early kickoff. I think there was also a little bit of people perhaps getting there a little bit earlier because of all the new COVID stuff. And we say new COVID stuff, but it's kind of a reinforced COVID protocol, I suppose. And actually, for the first time ever, they actually did check our COVID passports.
Yeah.
So we actually had to show our COVID passports.
You say they checked it, mate, but I mean it's pretty poor, isn't it? Because you could literally show a picture of any QR code with NHS written at the top, and they didn't check it. They just checked. It doesn't. It just shows a QR code with NHS pass on it. So yeah, but yeah, technically they checked something.
Yeah, that is true. That's true. But once we were in, it was fine, and I think but some of it might have also been like you said, Aaron, and about initially people not having a great amount of expectation, and Mize, we were talking in the coffee shop before the game, right, about we sort of say just like, as long as we can get through the first 10 minutes without a goal, without conceding a goal, at least make it a game.
And I guess, like you said, City, or I think Aaron, you said, City coming into the game winning 10 on the bounce, 10 league games on the bounce, and I think they'd conceded 6 goals in that or something ridiculous, and they're smashing goals in for fun in the last couple of weeks. You kind of got to expect the worst. And we were just saying, hopefully we keep it tight, we play smart, stick to a structure, and keep ourselves, like, basically we don't want to be out of the game in the first 10, 20, 30 minutes. And obviously we did that. I mean, funnily enough, I actually predicted a 3-3 draw because I kind of thought it was going to be a game where City were going to turn up. They didn't have to come and win. So they might just come kind of open up quite a lot. And I just thought both teams are scoring a lot of goals at the moment. I felt like it could be that kind of game. So I kind of came into it, not really. I mean, it was more hopefulness, hoping for a draw, but kind of expecting a good performance from Arsenal, but also a good performance from City. And I just thought it'd be a cracking game. But yeah, I mean, do you want to talk about like the first half then?
I think so, mate, because I think one of the things that did lift the crowd was the fact that not only in those first 10 minutes did we not concede, in that first 10 minutes, there became this surprising vigor and surprising confidence and surprising let's just go with dominance, to be honest, of how we started playing. Actually, City did have a lot of possession at the beginning, but what became quite interesting was we didn't seem to have a problem with it. We didn't seem to have a problem kind of, even when we were out of possession, controlling the game. And it ended up growing into this first half where all of a sudden it felt like we were Man City and they were Arsenal. It was, I've seen teams play City before and do quite well against City. But those teams have usually had their own identity and their own style. Liverpool play a very different way to City. And when Liverpool have gone toe-to-toe, they're playing it in a different way. When Chelsea beat them in the Champions League final, they have different styles. our style is very similar. What Arteta's trying to do is quite similar to how City play. And it felt like this really weird out-citying City. And it felt like the whole crowd just got behind it instantly, didn't they? I mean, is that how it came across on TV, Aaron?
Yeah. I thought we were incredibly dominant. I was actually very, very surprised at how dominant we were. And I think the thing I appreciated from watching on TV was actually like how good the football was, how good the passing was. Because where we sit in the North Bank, I mean, I'm not saying you can't watch the game, but you see the kind of passing triangles a bit less because we sit behind the goal. But I think the thing I appreciated was just how good Xhaka and Thomas Partey were in that first half, and they were just so dominant. And the football was really good, and I think there were times where we pressed them really high and we won the ball. We played it aggressively, but we played confidently, and we actually asserted ourselves on the game. And we looked like a team that wasn't afraid of Manchester City, and that we were there. We were going to have a go, and if we lost them, they outscored us fine, but we weren't going to hide from the opposition. And I think for once the fans realised what was going on, and I'd love to hear what you guys felt in the ground, but it just sounded like once everyone clocked that this is, there's actually something potentially quite special going on here. You could see that radiate in the ground, and then that lifted the players, and it just continued to go through. And then when we scored, obviously, the place just erupted. At least that's what it sounded like on TV.
I think that certainly was how it felt. I think that what became it felt like the fans all decided very quickly that the team were going to need us as well. And the team needed to know that they were doing a bloody good job.
Yeah.
It felt like it was that kind of thing where everyone was like, oh my God, you guys are awesome. Like, and everyone was, really, it was such a great atmosphere for that time of day, and an early kickoff. It was almost brilliant, and it felt like the team fed off that. It felt City were a bit shell shocked. That it felt at times. And I know there's a lot that's been made out also, about the fact that City had less rest than we did. That is true, and I'm sure that does have a factor. But you're not going to feel sorry for City when you've got people like Jack Grealish and whoever 50, 60, 70 million pound players on the bench. At the end of the day, they've got a squad that's designed to deal with this. And they couldn't cope. And I think there was the penalty shout, which is from the other end to where we sit, and it was hard for us to ascertain whether that was a penalty or not. But I think there was the danger that when that didn't get given, would the fans kind of go, oh God, it's not going to go for us today. But the players just carried on, and the fans kind of went with them. But I mean, do you guys want to talk about that penalty incident a little bit? Because I think Aaron and you probably had although we couldn't see it at the beginning, you probably did.
I was going to ask actually. So when I saw it, I think my view on this penalty is that I could see why it wasn't given in real time, because the way Ederson comes at Odegaard, the way he pushes the ball, it looks like he gets the ball because the ball moves in the natural direction at which you'd expect if Ederson got the ball. So I have no issue with the referee not giving it initially, because it looked, when you see it once, it's fine. But then I think when you see the replay, personally, I think it was very, very clear that he took the man. Now, people have said that they only got a certain replay at halftime, but personally, in the VAR replays that I saw, it was very, very clear to me that was a penalty. And for whatever reason, it wasn't given. Now, I'm sure we'll talk about this. You could argue that there's this whole debate over clear and obvious and what that means, and was it enough to overturn a decision? But I think you have to look at that in context of what happened later on. But I think for me, it was a 100% clear penalty when you see it with VAR. Did you guys, obviously you don't get a replay in the ground, I assume?
No.
That one.
Did they not show it? They did, didn't they?
So I think they showed
one, mate.
Xhaka.
There was a Xhaka thing. Do you remember? Like, they showed the replay of the Xhaka one that was given, but they didn't show a replay of this that wasn't given.
They're not. Okay, I can't remember now.
So when you guys, obviously, you saw the replay, it was obviously at the other end. You obviously can't tell. Yeah. What was the feeling in the ground?
Well,
after,
I think
after that.
Well, with the first penalty, and mine's like, because it was something happened around that which made me think, oh, you know what, this probably was a penalty, and that was actually just the Arsenal players reacting, incredibly passionately, demanding the penalty, which is something we've always complained Arsenal don't do enough. And it felt like they were convinced that it was, and purely based on that, and purely based on the fact that it said, VAR checking for possible penalty. I think everyone was quite optimistic. I think we were quite optimistic it was going to get given. But obviously then it wasn't. And then it's hard when you're in the stadium, you don't really know. There's not really much else, because if they're not going to show the replay, you can't really react to it. But I think, just to go on what you're saying, Aaron, and I'm looking at the replays now. And again, this has been talked to death, and we don't necessarily have to spend hours talking about these penalty decisions, but I'd be just really intrigued to know what the whoever it is sitting in Stockley Park, whoever it is, what they thought the referee did see, and therefore why they thought the referee didn't have to look at it again, because there was enough there. There was enough there to suggest that, well, there was no camera angle that clearly showed him touching the ball, but there were probably debatable elements around who stepped on whose foot, was the ball going to go out of play anyway, all that kind of stuff. And it's just difficult because you're not going to know. We don't know the answers. We don't know what the referee did see and what he didn't see, and what the guys in the VAR room thought the referee saw, and therefore why they deemed it not clear and obvious, or whether they thought it was a penalty at all. Do you know what I mean? That's what makes it pretty difficult.
Yeah, Myers, what did you think when you saw it?
Not much to add, really. I mean, in terms of what I thought, I mean, because of where we sit, and when there's an incident like that down the other end, you automatically look at the first thing you see is the reaction of the clock end, the fans in the clock end. Yeah. And obviously everyone, it was right in front of them. It was practically on the goal line. So everyone in that part of the stadium, appealing for it, arms up in the air. And you do, it was one of those where we just don't know from where we're sitting, right? But you were optimistic and hopeful once it goes to VAR that the referee's then going to go and look at it, basically what he did for the City penalty. And obviously that just didn't happen. And that's, as everyone has said, in the post-match analysis across media, etc. that's the frustrating thing. It's just the inconsistency. But yeah, I mean, look, when you're in the stadium, I thought there was a replay of it. So obviously I'm getting confused with the City penalty. I thought there was one replay of it on the big screens, but I guess not. But yeah, like I said, it's the inconsistency that's the really frustrating thing, as everyone has said, as every Arsenal fan has said. And it's not the first time, right? It's not the first time that we've seemed to have been very much screwed over by VAR. And like you said, Raj, you don't want to turn it into spending hours and hours sort of complaining about referees and officiating and all of that. But there's been a number of incidents this season that you just scratch your head and you don't really understand what the thought process is and how they're coming to these decisions. But it is what it is.
And there wasn't something on Match of the Day, for example, for anyone watching in the UK, we have Match of the Day as our highlight show, and Match of the Day really, really did not, I think, do justice to how the kind of pervasive way the decisions were going during the game were. Like, that was, you had to be there, it felt like, or you had to be watching the full 90 minutes.
That was really obvious with the way BT were going on about it. And I actually think they probably overdid it a tiny bit, where they pretty much that second half, they just, they made VAR the story. And when you're watching as a fan, obviously the commentary kind of influence your, how you feel about the game, right? So naturally, I think any Arsenal fan that was watching live on BT, finished that match and the story was just anger at the referee. And I think some of that was a bit over the top, and you probably didn't see that on the ground because you were there, and obviously there was anger. But I think BT, the post-match analysis, all they did was talk about VAR and like the state of refereeing in the country. And I think it was amplified a lot by watching the game on BT and the words the commentary used. But it was, in my opinion, like, I think, long story short, I think the ref got that, the VAR got that one wrong.
Yeah, and I think like it'd be worth a bit later to touch on kind of just, I guess, the overall performance of the referees and how the crowd reacted to it, because Myers, I thought that was very interesting. But just to finish off the sort of first half, it was that the penalty didn't go away did not stop the domination of Arsenal during the first half, and they just went from strength to strength, it felt. I don't want to talk about the specifics of Saka's goal so much, but can we talk about Saka and Martinelli for a bit, particularly in that first half, where, look, this is not an ordinary opponent. This is not Burnley. This is not Southampton. This is not even, Everton, Chelsea to a certain degree. This is Man City, who at the moment are running away with this league title. Okay. And Saka and Martinelli, for me, were causing them all kinds of havoc, all kinds of problems consistently in a way that I've very, very rarely seen from anyone at Arsenal for many years. I've very, very rarely seen people do that to very, very good teams, and Miles, I mean, tell me, what do you echo those thoughts? I mean, how did you see it?
Yeah, I mean, like the last few, since Martinelli's come into the team, and I specifically want to talk about him because I thought, despite the chances that he missed, especially the one in the second half, obviously, overall, his game, his performance was fantastic, and he seems to be, every time we watch him, every time he plays and he's starting a game, he seems to be almost improving every single game, and he's just this player who, he gets the crowd excited every time he's on the ball. He's only looking forwards, willing to take people on. He seems to have gone up in terms of pace as well, where he's burning past players. Like I think it was yesterday, it was Cancelo who he just burned past when he went on that run, when he picked up the ball deep in our own half and almost scored from that. And I think, when you now look at the sort of front line of, like you said, Saka, Martinelli, these two really, really young, exciting, not just prospects now, but just exciting players who have got so much talent, so much ability, so much skill, and they're just at the start of their careers, essentially, pretty much. And then you add to the mix the other young ones coming through, and Smith Rowe, etc., etc. It's. I mean, yeah, like you said, this was against one of the best team in the league, probably the best defense in the league, a team that don't really concede too many goals. Probably that Leicester game last week being an anomaly. And yeah, those two players, but pretty much everyone, the whole team really stepped up, but especially those two players really, really shone and took it to them, and seriously impressed. I mean, the only thing I'd say about Martinelli, which I think will come, and it's not a criticism or anything, I think it's just, and we talked about it, I think after the game, is, about his finishing can be a little bit erratic at times. I don't know if erratic's the right word, but
it's not consistent. It feels
it's not consistent. And even I would also add, sometimes his decision making.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Yeah, I think there was one yesterday. I can't remember which chance it was in the first half, where I think Saka's in the middle and he could square it. I mean, you completely understand why he shoots. And I think Edison saves it. I think he hits it straight at Edison. And to be fair, as a striker looking for goals, you can't knock him for that. But at the same time, again, it comes with experience, with matches, with playing together more, all of these things. There was an opportunity for him to just roll the ball across to Saka in the middle, and he's probably a tap-in if the ball's right. So all of these things, will come in time. But just from pure kind of excitement and watching these guys, we've actually got players now that when we go to watch Arsenal, we put them on the TV, they are genuinely genuinely exciting players to watch, and must be quite kind of frightening. Oh, maybe not frightening, but if you're an opposition defender, he was making Cancelo yesterday look like a very, very average right back, and he's not a very, very average right back. As good as he is going forward, he's still pretty good defensively as well. And I just hope that the kind of progression continues, and obviously we know Martinelli's had injury problems, so hopefully he just keeps himself fit and kind of keeps going, really, because fantastic yesterday.
Aaron, and anything to add? Because when Miles and I are watching, when we are in that North Bank lower, and obviously Martinelli, there was twice in that half at least where he made these incredible runs from fairly deep, taking on a number of people and thinking, well, he can't go any further, he can't go any further. It was quite hard, I think, in real life to appreciate how, one, the pace of what he was doing, but also some of the intricacy, because I did see that on the highlights. I mean, did it come when you were watching the match live at that point? Was there anything that surprised you? Was this what you've come to expect from the kid?
No, I think it was, there were those 2 or 3 chances. One where he had an unbelievable, amazing run where he managed to, I think Ramsdale laid it off to him perfectly, and then he beat a couple of their defenders and then just, shot wide when he cut into the box. But it was, both him and Saka. I think what really impressed me was, we were getting the ball to them really quickly, and it was so direct in terms of the passing. I think you have to give the whole team credit, but almost those two midfielders in Xhaka and Partey, I thought they were really good, and I thought Odegaard and Lacazette, when they both dropped deep, it just meant they provided the perfect passes to the two wide players, and then it was almost like, just go and do your thing, and then we will try and get in the box. And it was working so effectively. And I think what surprised me was how consistently we were doing it. And then we did it once, and then we did it again, and then we just kept winning the ball back wherever, whether it was deep, whether it was from the press, getting it to the midfield would pass it out, and they would just go and do their thing, and then we would start to dominate. And Cantella was terrified. Nathan Ake was just, he looked like at one point he was going to cry. And he was arguably one of their better defenders on the day, to be honest. Yeah. And it was just phenomenal to see how these two kids were, I don't want to use the word, they were terrorizing the City defense for, almost a whole half. And, we scored the goal, which was brilliant. But, at half time, my biggest frustration was, why haven't we scored more? Because I was like, are we really going to be this good again? And are City going to change it, turn up in the second half? And I couldn't work out, was this are we actually being this good, or like a City, just not playing? But I watched it again. I think we were just really dominant for 45 minutes against the City team, who I think were trying hard, but just couldn't match us.
Miles, did you find it interesting that we were able to put in that kind of first half performance without Arteta on the touchline, given how much he tends to micromanage on the touchline anyway?
I wouldn't say I was surprised. I thought the fact that we were able to do what we did against the best team in the league for 45 minutes without our manager on the touchline is a really, really encouraging thing. I wouldn't say I was necessarily surprised, because I guess this day and age, although he's not there in person, everything in terms of preparation leading up to the match, and even probably pre-match talk, whatever you want to call it, he's probably there, or it's the message has been passed on. It's all in real time in terms of the instructions from him to the assistants to Albert, or however it works. So no, not necessarily surprised. But yeah, like I said, just very, very encouraging. And hopefully it's only the one game that he's at. He's not going to be there for the City game. But yeah, I mean, in terms of that overall first half performance, there's probably not much more I can add, really. And I think the other thing, we talked about this as well, Raj, I think at halftime, how is it a case of Arsenal have just been fantastic and just nullified City, or have City kind of turned up and maybe expected a bit of an easier game, or are just not on it today? And it's quite hard to assess that. But I think, I do think that even if you look at the whole 90 minutes, Ramsdale had very, very little to do. And I think that is testament to how good Partey and Xhaka were. I think that's testament to how good the setup was when we didn't have the ball, because obviously once we went 1-0 up, City had most of the ball. And I think the match ended with like City having 70% possession. So when you go 1-0 down to City, you're going to have to you should expect a bit of an onslaught. And I was expecting us to get peppered in that second half. And that didn't really happen, even after we went down to 10 men. Even after we went down to 10 men, I know we're kind of crossing over to the second half now, but it didn't really happen. So I think Arsenal were very good with the ball, and they were again very good without the ball. And I think this is a trend that we're now seeing in the last few months, that all of these aspects of our setup and our performances, not just the setup, but the implementation of the plan, and on the back of that, the performances are definitely improving. So yeah, just very, very happy.
Definitely seems like something has clicked in the last 4 or 5 games. I said this in the last episode, where for the last every time we win, we're like, oh, it was only Norwich, it's only Southampton, but we've gone and done it against West Ham, we've gone and done it against City now. We can't say it's only Man City, they're tired. Like at some point we have to yeah, I think we're almost a bit scared to admit that actually we're playing well and something has changed and things are looking good. And we should give the team a lot of credit for that, because if they can do this consistently, and they've shown over the last 4 or 5 games they can do this consistently, we have a lot to be excited about. And I think, I think it's this classic Arsenal fan thing of, let's try and like lower the expectations a bit because we don't want to get excited. Because let's be honest, we've been excited before and been let down numerous times over the last 10 years about this being something like a new dawn. But I don't know, this definitely seems different. And I don't ever remember a team like that taking it to a big team and playing in that way that we did. And I was shocked. And which makes the result almost even more frustrating. But genuinely, I thought we deserve so much credit for how we played, and fair play to Arteta, fair play to the players for just executing a plan really well and delivering on it.
Yeah, and it was devastating to think that we could come away from a performance like that and not actually have anything to show for it. And much of that was because of this second half, which was just, littered with incidents and unfortunately, ending up sending us down to 10 men. But before we went down to 10 men, at the beginning of the second half, thought we continued where we left off. There was nothing to indicate that we were taking the foot off the gas. It was fine. And then City get a penalty. It's not given on the pitch. The ref doesn't think it's a penalty. The linesman doesn't think it's a penalty. But then the VAR room tell the referee to go look at it. When the referee goes to look at it, I think everyone in the stadium really felt at that point that given the referee's gone to walk over, there's got to be something that this is different from the one before that wasn't overturned, right? That wasn't given. So, and then it is given. And what was a surprise, and I think it was only after the penalty was scored, actually, it was shown on the screen, and they showed it on the screen. And do you remember the reaction from the stadium? I think it's very rare that, especially because it was Granit Xhaka involved. But sometimes it'd just be easy for the stadium to go like, "Oh, for God's sake, Granit Xhaka, whatever." But I think everyone saw it, and it felt very easy to see at that time that Bernardo Silva's falling down anyway, and that's what it looked like to the screen. And
that reaction was very audible on TV as well.
Yeah.
It just seemed like, I don't know if they time the replays on TV as they time it on the big screen, but all of a sudden they're showing a replay and you just hear this loud shouting from the crowd. And I thought, someone two-footed someone. But it turns out they just showed that replay, and then it just sounded like everything from that moment, like a match was lit in the stadium.
Yes.
And it just everyone just seemed, it sounded very, very angry in the ground. I don't know if that's what actually happened or what.
Well, because and Mize, because this is exactly you talk about the match being lit, because what happened was after that incident, there was all of a sudden just this series of small incidents, which every single one of them seemed like they were going against Arsenal. And then it really, the crowd, the crowd really, that it just felt like everyone came together and was just hang on, we're getting screwed over.
Yeah. And it was, I guess it was a bit of a build up throughout the whole game where the ref had what I'd like to call a bit of a Mike Dean performance, where he wanted to make it all about himself. And there did seem to be some really, I don't want to say dodgy calls, but just it did seem like everything was, or decisions were going against us, like the small fouls and the sort of the tactical fouling that City were doing. And it kind of culminated at that point, I think, and the replay probably didn't help, but it kind of did, as you said, where the fan base, the fans in the stadium did kind of come together, and it was kind of full support, not just for the team, but against the ref and against City as well.
What was your view in the penalty?
I think to be honest, I think it's a penalty. I think it is the right decision, because I think if you're the ref watching that back and you see Xhaka pull his shirt the way he did, the way he does, I don't think it gives you much option, even if Bernardo Silva is already going down, because there's sort of two phases to the foul. There's the brilliant skill by Bernardo Silva, where he cuts onto his the other side, and we know with Granit Xhaka, he's not the fastest, he's not the quickest on the turn, to say the least, and he's basically done. And I'm not saying Xhaka necessarily sticks out a leg, but there's contact there. And again, it's probably quite smart play by Bernardo Silva. He's probably kind of left a bit of a leg in there to make sure there is some contact, which helps him make the decision to go down. But then once he's going down, then Xhaka's pulling the shirt. I mean, there was a theory on Twitter. I don't know if you guys saw it, but I can't remember who tweeted it. But that basically Xhaka's only pulling Bernardo Silva's shirt as he's going down to try and stop him from falling over.
Yeah, I saw that.
Sounds, it sounds ridiculous. But then when you watch it back and then you keep that in your mind, it's almost like maybe he I don't know, maybe that's why. Because I mean, it's crazy to think why. I mean, look, we've had this from Xhaka before, right? And I'm not criticizing him too much because he had a really, really good game, and it's just really unfortunate it was him and all of that. But I think it is a bit of a crazy decision to pull, like, you take the risk pulling anyone's shirt in the box, right? Like anytime from a corner, from a set piece or whatever, when you've just been done by a bit of skill and the player's away and he's probably not even through on goal, which is a really frustrating thing because you see Gabriel coming over. So we've got like a second player covering. I'm not really sure what went through his head, but it's a bit of a moment of madness, a bit like the Odegaard one against United where we give the penalty away, where they go and win the game. Yeah, but I think overall, like I think it's the right decision in the end. But it was quite interesting. The referee's reaction to Silva going down was like no penalty. Was very much. It was no penalty. It was like get up. You know, it was very animated. It was like get up. Like so, he was convinced that it wasn't a penalty at the time.
But that's why, Miles. That's why, because of what you just said. That's why I don't think it was the right decision in the end. Because ultimately, like you say, if you're going to pull on someone's shirt in the penalty area, you always run the risk of conceding a penalty. And unfortunately, if you pull someone's shirt and you give the penalty and the referee gives the penalty, then VAR isn't going to look at it and say, mate, you've made a clear and obvious error. It won't do that because it says, okay, you saw him pull a shirt. But he didn't give the penalty. So he didn't give the penality initially, right?
Yeah. I don't think he saw the shirt pull though.
Well, okay, that's a good point. So if that's the case, and if he's gone, okay, listen, if they've gone, listen, there was a shirt pull, like, did you see that? And he's gone, oh, I didn't see the shirt pull, right? And then he's gone to the monitor. He then also has the advantage of it being in slow-mo. So given it's in slow-mo, he should then see the fact that he's already going down by the time the shirt is pulled. Because pulling a shirt doesn't warrant a penalty, right? That happens so many times. So many times people are pulling shirts. And it goes to VAR. And VAR says, that's fine. Carry on. Carry on. It's not enough. Right. So the fact that they're able to slow it down with the shirt pull, for me, should say that if they've slowed it down and showed the shirt pull, then they should have realized the shirt pull wasn't enough to cause the penalty, which is the only reason I think that I'd love to know what it was that he allegedly did not see. If he basically says, I didn't think there was contact. And if they go, no, actually, there was some contact. Okay. If that's the thing, then fine. Okay, fine, maybe. But that's the problem, isn't it? We don't know the.
I agree with both. I think I agree with Myers in the fact that I think if that had happened to Saka at the other end or Martinelli, I would almost say it's like smart play from Silva in the sense that like a player sticks a leg out, you almost, it's the modern football thing of you almost manufacture the contact, you go down, you will get a penalty for it. And I think in that sense, I would say that if the referee gave a penalty, for that, I could say, well, yes, he's exaggerated, he's dived or whatever, but it's the game now where if you stick a leg out, you're asking for trouble. And then on top of that, he's obviously pulled a shirt, which I don't really understand why he's done it. And this is just Xhaka being Xhaka. Like, I know he had a good game, but like, what are you doing? Why are you pulling someone's shirt like that? Why are you sticking a leg out? Why are you pulling a shirt? But then, Rod, you're spot on. When the ref like emphatically doesn't give it, what has made VAR go and say, right, you need to go and have a look at this again? And then when he goes to the screen, it's almost a bit pointless because at that point, he's going to give it. And then I think what really annoys people is that decision in the context of having not done that in the first half, where the VAR has seen that and said, right, I'm not going to intervene in that because I don't think I need to because the referee's made his decision. And I think that's what annoys people, which is why have you told the referee to go and have another look at the second one? And why didn't you do it for the first one? And what's the difference? And I think, like you said, Raj, it's this problem of no transparency is that we are left guessing why they've done this. And, I just think that's, in this day and age, why are we having to guess why the referee's done that? And it's so stupid, because you have pundits who...
It's only in this sport. It's only in football.
Only in this sport, because in cricket, you can hear the umpires. In rugby, you can hear them talk. And fair enough, don't do it during the game, but at least come out afterwards and say, this is why I gave the penalty. This is why I didn't refer this to VAR. Sorry, this is why VAR didn't tell the referee to go and have another look. And, explain yourself. And it was ridiculous, because, and again, on TV, you had Peter Walton somehow trying to justify why this was the case. And he just spoke nonsense for like 5 minutes, and it doesn't help the game. It doesn't help referees. I have sympathy for referees, because I think they have a hard job and they get a lot of abuse, but they just don't help themselves. So, it's just really difficult to take, because I think you almost feel like, okay, there's a lot of marginal calls in that game, and almost every single marginal call went against us, and that's how we lost the game.
Yeah, and a skim forward, right? Because I think there's still some really big things for us to reflect on. But yes, that happens. They score, equalize, and then everyone suddenly, I think everyone in the stadium even was kind of like, oh crap, it's Man City now. They're going to go on and win the game, etc. Immediately afterwards, there's this crazy moment where the ball kind of sort of comes over on the right hand side, but our left hand side watching, and whoever it is, Nathan Ake initially, or someone heads it over the keeper. It looks like it's going in. Nathan Ake clears it off the line, and Gabby misses, to be honest, a very, very easy opportunity, which, in the end has been analysed to say that, oh, maybe the referee put him off. And what did you guys think of that? Was that a chance that had to be scored?
Yeah, I thought, I mean, there's no two ways about it. I thought, actually, Nathan Ake, I thought initially, I think it was between Saka and Nathan Ake, whatever happened there, I thought that was going in. I was convinced, and I thought Ake did really well to keep.
He's rapid, isn't he? He's rapid, yeah.
And then I was just like, oh, it's like, then you kind of, it comes out, and then you're like, who's this going to fall to? And then you're like, oh, this is perfect. It's fallen to Martinelli. And I think it hits the post or something like that, the outside of the post, which is absolutely gutting. And Miles, I'm sure you're going to mention this, but there was obviously some stuff going on afterwards about the referee and his positioning for that chance. Did you see it?
Just before Martinelli?
No, when Martinelli took the shot. The referee is he basically makes a striker's run into the box.
We were saying this, isn't it? Why is he? When do referees get in the box?
They don't need to, because it looks like he's going to see if the ball is crossing the line, but he's obviously got a watch on his hand that does that for him. And I think, again, this is one of those like marginal calls. I don't think it decides the game, but when the referee is having in my opinion, a bad game, it just doesn't add to the narrative when he is, effectively blocking off our striker. Having said that, I think Martinelli should bury that. No excuses. A horrible, horrible miss. And it's effectively cost us the game. But these little things, they don't help, do they?
Yeah, I mean, look, not too much to add, to be honest. Like you said, it's a great chance. I was shocked that he missed it. We saw the replays on the screen and just couldn't believe that he's just not hit it anywhere else. Pretty much, like he's missed it by quite a bit, even though it hits the outside of the post. It's not, he's just missed. I don't know what's happened there, but
do you think, Miles, it's sorry, do you think it's like? Do you remember when we played Olympiacos in the Europa League, and I think it was when Arteta's first season. Do you remember that? Where basically they had just scored. They just scored, and everyone, the heads are down immediately. They've just scored, and all of a sudden, Aubameyang gets this opportunity where he's in front of goal, and it's whatever. Is there an element where do you think Martinelli was like, "Oh my god, what the hell"? Like,
not really. I don't think so. I don't know. I don't think you can put it down to that, because like this is elite level sport, right? Like these guys are playing.
It's an open goal. It's a tap-in, really.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not. Yeah, well, it's a tap-in. He's got to react relatively quickly, in the sense that it's not one where you take there's no reason for him to take a touch to set it. No. It's coming back to him where you can just pretty much side foot it back where it's come from, and he scores. More, very likely that he scores. So I think it's just a really, really bad miss on his part, and unfortunate, but
like, again, how you can't really be too critical. You can't be critical really, because he's just been so good recently. He's been so good for the last 5 or 6 games, whatever it's been, and it's just one of those things. Just one of those misses. Strikers miss goals, forwards miss chances. Sorry, and it happens.
Yeah, like even when Aubameyang was missing chances, at least I was defending him, because strikers do miss chances, and as long as they're putting away enough of those chances and not missing 4 or 5 every game, you don't really. It's not really like a trend, or it's an error, but it's not like an error where I think like an error. It's almost like you look at if Granit Xhaka makes an error, you say, oh, well, that's an error that's cost us a game. When a striker misses a chance, you kind of look at it a bit differently, I think.
Yeah.
I'm sure if that chance comes to him 100 times, he probably scores 90 plus of them. Yeah, whatever. Like it's just one of those misses.
It's disappointing, right? And then that then kicks off the sort of series of events, doesn't it? Because right before that happens, Gabriel has picked up his first yellow card, which at the time everyone is saying, oh, it's because he scuffed up the penalty spot.
Yeah, I was going to ask you this. Could you tell what he got booked for?
No.
So
I had no idea.
We had no idea.
I had no idea either.
Yeah.
And I don't think anyone, even BT, knew what this first booking was actually for. They claimed it was for scuffing up the penalty spot, but they never showed this.
No, and it's not now, right? Because the referee's report, it said it's not. It's for dissent. And actually then when you look at the footage now, it looks like, the referee never saw the scuffing up of the penalty spot. If it basically, it's like no one saw that. He kind of just did it, and no one even complained about it. And then the whole, later after penalty was scored, there's that kind of walk back to the centre circle. And it looks like in that exchange, something was said and immediately the ref has booked him. But that happens. Then obviously there's this miss that we've just discussed happens. Then Gabriel makes a challenge around the centre circle where Gabriel Jesus kind of makes a good turn and tries to zip past him, and he gets body checked. I mean, did you guys think it was? I mean, look, I think it was certainly a foul. Do you think it warranted a second yellow?
I think letter of the law. Like, I think if that's, again, like if you look at this, where if you hypothetically say it's the other way around, and that's an Arsenal player, if that's Saka, for example, I expect the City player, to get a yellow. I think the frustrating thing is 2 things. I think one is with the first yellow card. Look, we have no idea what Gabriel said to is it Attwell? Stuart Attwell, right?
Yeah.
We have no idea. I mean, look, I don't think his English is great, to be honest. So I'm not sure, like, unless he's just been learning naughty words. But like, I do feel like though.
Talk about Stuart Attwell, yeah.
Yeah. But I'm saying, but I guess what I'm trying to say is, we see it on TV, you hear it, right? Like, you can lip read some of the abuse that players throw at refs. Like, if you think about Rooney, if you think about probably the kind of stuff like John Terry is a typical example of the kind of things that they say to refs when they're like disputed decision or whatever in the heat of the game. I'd be so surprised. I just can't really think what Gabriel would have said to warrant a booking. And this is what's ridiculous.
There was that clip, I don't know if you've seen on social media, where there is a bit of a crowd around the ref. And then all of a sudden a City player basically bundles into Gabriel. I think it might have been Rodri, actually. And he then ends up kind of like almost shoulder barging the ref. Yeah. And then it was around that time where he got booked. So
just after, right?
Yeah, it might.
No, then the penalty's taken, and then it's on.
Yeah, so I don't think it's. I think the footage is very misleading the way it's edited.
Okay. Yeah, really? Yeah. Okay. All right, fine. But basically, my take on this is, I don't think anything significant happened.
Yeah,
and it almost felt like he was just like, he was like, well, I'm going to book someone. Who should I book?
Just to get just to stop, like to stop being harassed. Not harassed, but yeah.
Yeah, go on, Mike. So then you were saying
so basically I just feel like it was a very it basically just demonstrates how out of control he was of the entire game, how out of control Attwell was. So I think, like I said, we don't know what he said. He could have said the most rudest, horrible thing to him, whatever, I don't know. And fair enough, maybe it did warrant a yellow card, but like I said, it happens on a football pitch, right? Constantly, all through the game, every single game. So I feel like that's just, I think the ref could have managed that situation a bit better. And then from that point on, the second yellow, I do feel for Gabriel, because technically it's a yellow card. Again, I feel like the ref could potentially manage it a little bit better, where he knows everything that's just happened in that last few minutes, right? It's just gone crazy. The stadium is about to erupt. Like anytime a decision goes to VAR and it gets overturned like that, and it's for the away team, the home ground in a tight game like it was, the fans of the stadium are on your back. Like, I think this is the thing, it's a hard one because technically he's made the right decision, but I just think he could have given him another warning, warning, and said, your next one, you're off, sort of thing, which is what I think a good ref does, especially for how soft the first yellow card was.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean. But look, it's fantastic from Gabriel. Gabriel Jesus. Fantastic from Jesus. And I feel it's another frustrating one because I don't know if he really needs to take him out. Like, it's one of those where they've probably got their front three kind of running onto our back two, and Gabriel's out of position and high up the pitch, and he's out of the game if he lets him go. But at the same time, I think, again, this is where you probably see, as good as Gabriel has been, a little bit of inexperience. Where if you're on a yellow and the ref's having the kind of game that he's having, where he's clearly, it's one, you just don't know what he's going to give at any time. You don't do what you did. You don't yank him down because you're just running the risk of getting sent off. So I think that on Gabriel's part, it's probably a bit of frustration, and we've just conceded and everything, but it's also a bit of an experience as well. And like, you've got to factor in, he's 22.
Yeah,
whatever it is.
He's young, isn't he? And, then again, the fans have then gone from being really pissed off after the penalty to really, really pissed off. Yeah. To then about 2 minutes afterwards, do you remember Saka got fouled, and then someone got fouled, and then Saka got a yellow card for complaining about it.
Yeah.
And then at that point, it's like, well, the referee is on one, right? The referee is clearly doubling down and gone, well, the only way I'm going to get myself through this game is to kind of just basically dish out the cards and then hope that everyone stops complaining.
Yeah, I think everyone at that point of that red card was just emotional and had a rush of blood to the head. Like, Gabriel had it, where he was like, well, he shouldn't. When you're on yellow card, whatever you get booked for, you have to be careful. You can't do what he did. So, like you said, Miles, by the letter of the law, you can't argue with the yellow card. But at the same time, I think a good referee just says, like, okay, no more, calm down. I'm letting this one slide, and I'm not going to produce a second yellow card for essentially the player's first foul of the game and send you off. Like, almost use a bit of common sense and manage the game a bit better, because once he'd done that, he was like emotional, and he was just booking everyone left, right, and center for about 5 or 6 minutes. And he, I think an experienced referee manages that whole situation better, manages the game better. And I think that's where if you look at that yellow card in isolation, you say the referee got it right. You can't argue, what are you arguing about? But actually, was the referee making an emotional decision? I think he probably was. And that, again, is these marginal calls. Could he have just said, last one, kept 11v11, and then what would the result have been? Especially when, I think that was my biggest frustration with the ref. Not these penalty shouts. It was much more around, okay, well, in those 5 minutes where you booked Gabriel, sent him off again, and then booked Saka, and then I think he booked someone else holding as well.
Holding,
yeah, in a space of like 7 or 8 minutes, you've obviously lost control of the game at that point. And the fact that Rodri, who took out Martinelli at one point, albeit he did slip, didn't get a yellow card for that. It's very, very frustrating how that whole period panned out.
Yeah, and then we had this period of 10 men, which we showed some great resilience for. It wasn't like we were fine. We had to concede a lot of possession, but it wasn't like you mentioned, Miles, earlier. Ramsdale wasn't getting peppered, and we all crossed our fingers, and we really, really hoped that we could get a draw, and it looked like it was going to happen. And then, as a lot of great teams do, like, you need a bit of luck or whatever, but they kind of got a bit of luck with how the ball rebounded in the area, and Rodri scores and then runs over to our fans in the clock end, which was a bit of a weird thing to do, but considering you're at the same end as your away fans, you could have very easily ran to the Man City fans.
It was a bit of a dickish thing to do, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. And look, do you know what? I don't condone the fact that our fans were throwing stuff at players or whatever. I'm not condoning that, but you go any stadium in the country, if you are an away player who scores a winner in the injury time and then runs straight at the home fans, it doesn't matter what club it is, you're going to get some people pelting stuff. It's not, I don't condone it, but it was a really stupid thing, I think, for Rodri to do. But it was obviously, look, overall, just, really sad moment for everyone in the stadium. And I guess, everyone watching at home, right?
Yeah, the funny part is that's the family enclosure, right?
Yeah.
Where the junior gunners sit. And like with Gunnosaurus is probably chilling. But, yeah, it's just that adds insult to injury, and the fact that like we could have just held on, got a point, and then the narrative around the game would have been very different, I think. And that's what hurts most, is that even when we went down 10 men, we didn't play that badly, but we still managed to lose to just I think, was it De Bruyne who played the ball in, maybe?
Yeah.
And maybe Holding probably could have dealt with it better, but it was the first minor error that our defenders have made all game, and it just lands, and it's the 96th minute, and he puts it in, and it's just really, really annoying, right?
Yeah. I mean, look, we could. Yeah, I mean, it's like it's a weird way for City to score a winner, isn't it? Like to chuck a ball in the box. I guess if you really look at it, there are areas and things that you could look back in hindsight and say some of the players should have done differently. Like there's no pressure on the ball when De Bruyne has got it. Like he's got all the time in the world to sort of look up, dink a little ball over. Rob Holding seems to track. I think it's Rodri who makes the run, and he's able to run straight onto Rob Holding. So like there's no, I don't know where Thomas Partey is, but I'm sort of looking at him and Xhaka thinking, there should be a midfielder in front of Rodri tracking that run first, but he seems to run behind Rob Holding, and Holding seems to be just ever so slightly late tracking the run. But I think he wins the header. I could be wrong. And then it kind of, whatever, it comes down, they have the shot. Ben White does really well to block it. He actually does really, really well. It's actually a really good block, and it just falls for them. And just one of those, they kind of got the break at that point.
Quickly, I don't know if you thought on that point, Fabregas, he actually tweeted, he said, when De Bruyne has the ball, you have to just back off.
Back off.
Because back off as in, because back off, the defenders should back off the target man. Because he can, I think he said, like, City will always run in behind you. And you're right. I think in an ideal world, our defenders should know that, even if it's the 96th minute.
It's 93rd, it's the thing. 93rd, 4th, 5th minute.
But if you're being harsh, you say you have to keep your concentration, and at least in that situation, make sure we leave there with the point.
I think what was really, for me, encouraging about how the players managed that period when we had 10 men, I thought that there were some very clever decisions from the players where they could have got quite emotional, and they could have tried at sometimes to close down players that, like they were doing when they had 11 men. But doing that against a team like City when you have 10 creates so many spaces. Like City want you in those instances, they want you to be aggressively closing down and creating all these kind of goals. And it felt like, our guys were really kind of focused, going, do you know what, we can't. And that's a testament, I think, to how well coached we are these days. It feels like maybe it's a profile of the squad as well, but it's obviously sad. But let's reflect on the final whistle, because it was probably the most confusing set of emotions, I think, in that stadium. Like I've never ever experienced anything like that, where it was such a confusing set of emotions that every single person in every home fan in that stadium felt the same set of confusing emotions, and all wanted to articulate them. And it all came out in this really amazing. It was like a masterpiece in some ways, right? It was like a story. We started off with the boo. Everyone was like booing the refs. Everyone was like totally, but everyone knew that at some point we have to transition this song to supporting the players for this amazing effort. And it was just interesting song in the end, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think like combination of everything that happened through that game, it was a crazy game. And I think the referee's performance, like the fans just united against the referee first of all, and that seemed to be the kind of thing that they really wanted to get out. The fans really wanted to just sort of let loose on the ref. And
a couple of people tried to run on the pitch, didn't they?
Really? It was like a City fan. It was really weird, wasn't it? Because it was like a City fan who clearly was, he had a City shirt on, but he had like a jacket or a hoodie, whatever. And he was in the Arsenal end. So he clearly must have been covered up.
Hard to get a City away ticket, is it? I mean, come on.
Oh yeah. And then he's run onto the pitch from the North Bank, and then we see him like getting escorted out, and then someone else, I think it was an Arsenal fan, both Asians as well, I think. So it's not really doing our names too much. But yeah, man, like, it was really, like you said, it was really strange, Raj, like that final whistle, because it was all towards the ref, and then everyone kind of realized, like, you looked at the players on the pitch, and they're so, even some of the City players were kind of just, they fell to the floor. It was just one of those games where it probably took everything out of them. And you could see like the Arsenal players were distraught and probably couldn't believe that they've not come away with anything from that game. And then you sort of, as I think Arsenal fans do at home games, they did try to get behind the players to show, look, we appreciate the effort that you guys have put in. And I can't remember what the song was. What was the song that everyone? Was it just the Arsenal song? Or
no, I mean when I was referring to song, I was just purely like kind of the symphony of sound of boo to the cheers. Okay. That's all I meant.
It was just but it was weird because it went from one thing to the next, and it was it was just a mixture of emotions. But yeah, overall, just as everyone felt like just absolutely gutted that we weren't able to just snatch. Like I was convinced that we were going to get a draw. Like, you get to that point, and I didn't see City scoring because they just were not creating the chances. So it was very, very, very hard to take.
2 shots on target, the penalty and the goal.
Oh wow, there you go.
That's mental.
And I think even at the end, like probably around the 85th, 90th minute, I remember we were attacking them. Like I remember Saka had a corner, and I remember Saka was coming, like So was it Saka? I can't remember. Maybe it wasn't Saka, but there was I think there were periods of that point after we went down to 10 men, there were periods where we weren't just sitting back on them, and we were still willing to give it a go. So yeah,
it's disappointing. Look, and I think we've been talking for a while already, but before we do finish, I do really want to hear from you guys about what your overarching feelings were coming out of that, because when we went to the pub afterwards, actually, we should mention it was quite a funny journey to the pub, because we walked down, we drank somewhere where Miles knows what I'm going to say. Yeah. We drank at a pub that we don't normally drink at. It's a place called the Hamilton, which is near Arsenal, near Highbury Islington Station. And we're on our way there, and basically loads of City fans were also walking along the road like with us, and they're making a lot of sound, like, so lots of City fans singing, and we are about to cross the road, and so there are some City fans who are then walking kind of behind us, not crossing the road. But anyway, many of you won't know this, but my Arsenal shirt's got North Bank on the back, and it's quite funny because suddenly I felt one City fan just rub my head, and then another City fan just go, yeah, fuck the North Bank. And I was like, that's like the funniest bit of abuse I've ever had.
That's hilarious. That was funny. I was laughing.
At that point, you kicked off and started a fight.
To be honest, I thought
the Emirates again.
That was probably the first time I laughed after the final whistle. Like, it was always but anyway, the point what I was getting to is when we ended up getting to the pub with the other Arsenal fans we were talking to, it's just such a weird feeling because we were all so proud, and we were only really talking about, we were talking about things that went against us, but otherwise we were just so positive around what we've seen. And I thought it was amazing to be so positive after a defeat, but there really were these incredible things to be positive about. And if there was one thing that you guys could pick, I mean, what would you pick as the main positive coming out of that?
So for me, clearly, it was actually how good the football was. In that, I've said this a few times where I've said, actually, I think we'll win loads of games, but we will not play well, and we won't batter a team. Actually, what we did on Saturday was we battered a team, but we lost the game, which was a new one. But I just thought there were moments there in terms of just how good it looked. And I know, Raj, you say that we played like City do, but I thought actually City probably don't always play the best football. It's very effective, but this football was, it was almost like Arsene Wenger team levels of dominance at that point where the defenders couldn't handle it. And that for me was a real indication of the progress that we're making.
Yeah, what about you, Mice?
Yeah, I mean, I can't disagree with that, obviously. I guess I guess you can't help but be proud of the fact that it's such a young team, and we keep saying it, right? Like it's just such a young team. But you know, these players were able to, or they kind of came to the game with a mental mindset that we're gonna take the game to City. You know, we're gonna give it to them. We're gonna show them what we're about. And we're going to see what happens. And I think that's the thing that I'm most proud of, because there's been so many, like we all know it, right? There's been so many of these big games, maybe not so much the home games, but you know, we've faced City, Liverpool, Chelsea, United in a few games in the last few years, and just kind of rolled over for them. And we've said it so many times. We've watched them and we just be like, they're not up for it. These players are not up for it. They're not bothered. They're not up for it. They're not, like, there's no courage. They're not, you know, so many things are wrong. And didn't see any of that yesterday. And I think that's probably the thing that I'm most proud of. Like, you know, it's almost like another stepping stone on the journey. You know, it's another stepping stone on the journey. So, you know, the result is the result, and that's frustrating and that's really disappointing, and it's difficult to stomach, and it's a difficult one to take. But when you kind of step away from the result and you look at the journey and you look at kind of what this team are showing they can do, game on game, month on month, it's incredibly exciting. And you know, I know I wasn't on the last episode when you guys recorded and you were talking about kind of like, you know, season so far and everything. You're reflecting on how we're doing and all of that. But you know, I think if you're a genuine Arsenal fan, you can't be anything but excited by everything that's going on. There's still lots of things to fix and lots of things that will probably kind of change, as it were, over the next, you know, as part of this project. But you know, if you just look at the progress in the last few months alone, like it's huge, it's massive, and you know, really excited to see what happens for the rest of the season. Because if we can put a performance in like that against City, with Spurs in a couple of weeks and the other big games that are going to be coming up, you know, why not? Why can't, you know, there's nothing to suggest that they can't go and dominate against other teams in the league, obviously, because we've just done it pretty much against the best. So
yeah, I think something you said there at the end, Miles, is progress. Because I think 2, maybe even 3 months, maybe even 6 weeks ago, there were debates in the Arsenal fan community about if this team have actually progressed under Arteta. I don't think anyone can look at that performance yesterday and say that we haven't made progress since 2 years ago when he took over. I don't think an Emery team does that. I don't think and even a late Arsene Wenger team can pull off, you know, to build a young team, play good football and dominate the team, albeit not come away with any points, which is the frustrating part. And there has been significant progress made in the last month. And it's really good to see it come together. And I'm more hopeful now than ever that if we do maintain this level of football, we can progress the team up the table and certainly give, you know, I think we so far the discussion has been about, okay, well, can we compete to get fourth? But I think yesterday we saw actually there is a chance now that we can compete at a level that's higher than top 4, which is like, this is the best team in the country and we gave them a game. Now we've shown that actually the ceiling isn't just fourth with this team. The ceiling is actually a lot higher. Now there's a question of, can we maintain that? Can we do it against the Norwiches, which let's be honest, we beat Norwich 5-0. Can we do it every week? Can we do it against Spurs in a couple of weeks' time? Can we do it against Liverpool? But we've got a glimpse into the future, I felt like, and it's left us all feeling very excited.
Definitely. I think for me, the biggest thing that I came away with that I was happy about is effectively a conclusion of all the things that you guys have said. And it, just to give an anecdote, I think there was a time before we were about to record at some point last season, and there was Champions League football going on TV. And I think it was like Real Madrid and Bayern Munich or someone like, basically 2 very big teams. And I can't remember who it was, but someone commented about just the sheer pace the game was being played at. Do you remember this?
It was a semi-final or something like that.
Yeah.
Maybe Man City against someone else. I don't know. Yeah,
maybe. And it was just this thing where you watched and you just thought, there's just incredibly high quality football going on at an incredibly high pace. And then when we were reflecting on Arsenal, I think at that time it was like we're nowhere near this, because even if there are aspects to our game which technically we can be happy about, there's no the pace at which this is getting played at is just incredible. And that's what I saw against City. I saw a team playing incredibly high technical levels of football at an incredibly high pace. And for me, then it was like, wow, this is not even about potential anymore. Yes, this team has potential, but where this team is now is actually really good. And if we, for example, were playing Champions League football right now, I think we get in the knockout stages at least. This team is good enough to get in the knockout. So, that for me was that. It was about seeing just a team that I can see now. I can see this team can compete at that level. So look, that felt great. And look, I mean, look, so obviously we've talked a lot about this game, a game that we've lost, but a game that we can be incredibly proud about. It's just the start of a new year. I think everyone, all Arsenal fans, despite the result, despite the fact that Spurs won, and despite the fact that West Ham won, I think it was a day where, although we have regrets, I think we feel incredibly positive about the team and the direction. And speaking about that direction, the next direction we're going in is back at the Emirates against Liverpool on Thursday. The opposition doesn't get any easier. In real terms, it probably does, because it's the Carling Cup. I always call it the Carling Cup. I'm still going to call it the Carling Cup.
Poor Carabao.
Paid
all that money.
All right. Just don't make me feel bad. Okay, Carabao Cup. Well, Carabao Cup Semi-Final on Thursday. Very quickly, guys. Let's do some very quick thoughts on that. So, it's the Carabao Cup. It's semi-final. We are probably in a situation where I think we've got. When's our next Premier League game after that? Our next Premier League game is actually Spurs away.
Yeah. The following week, though, right?
2 weeks.
We've got Forest at the weekend.
Yeah. So it's an interesting situation, because whereas many teams may want to rest players for the Carabao Cup, I'm not necessarily sure we will. But it was interesting to see what Liverpool do, especially because they still have a number of players out with COVID. I mean, how do you see that going, guys? Liverpool obviously just drew 2-2 with Chelsea today, with still a somewhat a depleted side. But they still had obviously ridiculous amounts of quality. But what do you think? Any predictions about the sorts of lineups that we'll see from both teams, and how do you think it will go?
Well, yeah. I mean, look, I think from an Arsenal perspective, I think it's a good opportunity for Arteta with the next 3 games to essentially mix it up a little bit. I think. There's it, I really, really want to get to Wembley again. Like the fact that we missed that cup final because of COVID, the Aubameyang final. We've been quite lucky as Arsenal fans. We've been able to go to Wembley quite a lot in the last few years, even when we've not been particularly great. But even so, like a Wembley trip is a Wembley trip, and I really, really, really want to get to Wembley again. So I'm hoping that we don't switch up the entire team, and I kind of don't feel like we necessarily need to do that. It comes back to what I was just saying. Basically, I feel like it's a good opportunity to mix things up. Forest at the weekend, then Liverpool again, and I think it's going to be a mix of players like Tavares and Holding. Obviously, Leno's going to start. Probably.
I think he will. I don't think he. I think he might go Ramsdale on this one.
I think.
Because
do you not think
you'll?
Yeah, go on. Sorry, mate.
Sorry, Aaron, are you saying that because we've got the FA Cup on Saturday and then Leno, etc. will play?
This is almost a bit more like it depends on how ruthless Arteta wants to be, and maybe he's promised Leno the game, and I wouldn't be too upset if Leno does play, because I really like Leno, but there's an opportunity to play Leno on Saturday or Sunday whenever we play Forest, and actually this game against Liverpool is potentially more important now. So maybe you say actually this becomes a first team game because it's a semi-final now, and you play let's say the B team, the more experienced players on Saturday.
I think, yeah. I mean, look, we had that game called off last week, right, against Wolves. So I guess they've had a bit more of a break, or less games, therefore less fatigue than what they would have expected. But I still think, especially with kind of the unpredictability of COVID as well, and it could all of a sudden be a couple of players out for Spurs or whatever, and we just don't know what's going to happen, what's around the corner. But yeah, I guess a fair point. I kind of think he's kind of promised Leno to be the cup keeper, considering
maybe.
he's
was our number one for the last few years, and kind of all of a sudden, now the number two. I feel like it's almost like you might feel like he just owes Leno, not owes Leno that, but it's like it's a fair thing, like making the cup keeper, and it's not really too much of a downgrade. It's not a huge downgrade in quality, is it? We know what Ramsdale's number one, but Leno has still been very, very good. But yeah, look, I mean, it will be quite an interesting team lineup. I'm very interested to see how Liverpool line up, because clearly Klopp is not prioritizing the League Cup.
Also, Salah Mane will be at AFCON as well.
No Salah Mane, Keita, all of these players out with COVID today, so I don't know if that's still going to be the case on Thursday.
Klopp's got COVID as well, right? So he might not turn up.
Yeah.
Is Arteta going to be back?
I think so.
7 days.
7 days now, isn't it?
Okay. I mean, hopefully. But yeah, I just hope, like, it's the home leg, the home tie. So I really hope we kind of do carry on from what we were doing against City, and we just take the game to Liverpool, no fear, try and get some goals, make it an entertaining game. It's not the worst thing if we go out of this competition at semi-final stage to, obviously, a big team. But like I said, from a fan's perspective, I really, really want to go to Wembley again. So yeah, I'm hopeful. I think we'll get a positive result, but like, I don't even know now. Do away goals count and all of this kind of thing? I'm not even sure, like, the rules of the competition.
It's true. I don't know either, actually.
Yeah. So I don't know how it works, but like, I hope we get a positive result. And it's one of these games where they've kept the prices low for our game, for the home game, for the home tie. People are going to be, kids are going to be coming to this game for paying 10 quid, and you kind of hope that just from that, it's nice. It would be nice to obviously win the game and put in a good performance and score some goals. So don't really know, but I can't really predict it, to be honest. You just don't even know what the team lineups are going to be like. But yeah, it's kind of my thoughts.
I think the other thing is, it'll be good to go to Wembley, but also I think for this team, it would be really, I think, winning a trophy when the finals in February, right? Winning a trophy in February could be really important for this team. I know we won the FA Cup in Arteta's first season, but we've had a bit of a reset since then. And actually, if you look at it, like, we're not going to win the Premier League this season. We're not in Europe. The FA Cup is still a bit of a lottery. So this is only one of 2 trophies that we can win this season. And to win it would almost kickstart this era. And I think, I'm not sure correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't the League Cup Pep's first trophy as well?
I think it was Jose Mourinho's first trophy, I think, for Chelsea. Probably was, because they've won it like every year for like 5 years or whatever.
Exactly. So. And I feel like it would be like a really significant stepping stone for this team to win a trophy together. If we do, and I know there's a big if, because we'll probably have to face either Chelsea, we'll face either Chelsea or Spurs in the final. But if we could, I think, these players like the Ben Whites, the Ramsdales, the Tierney's won the cup, but like Martinelli, Saka, Tomiyasu could actually say, like, well, I've joined this project, and within 6 months I've got a trophy. There are many players, England captains who don't win trophies. So
it took me a second there. I was thinking
to come up and say, like, I've been in the Premier League for 6 months. I've bought into this project that this manager said that we're going to build this team to go on and win big things. The belief that a trophy will give this team, I think, will be huge compared to, like, if a Chelsea win it, I don't think it makes a big difference to Chelsea. If Liverpool win it, I don't think it changes much for Liverpool. Obviously Spurs, if they win it, it will be, the plaster all over the stadium. I don't think we'll go that far, but for us, I think this would be a huge, in terms of the project and the significance of this, it could be really big for us.
Completely agree with you. I think that's a really good insight. Yeah, yes, winning it in February and that kind of momentum would be amazing. It's also, what I think is going to be really, really interesting now is, after the Chelsea-Liverpool draw, I wonder what both Chelsea and Liverpool are thinking about their prospects about winning the Premier League. And do you know what I mean? And I wonder if they now start thinking, okay, do you know what? We need to start prioritizing, the Champions League or whatever. And it'll be really interesting to see, like, how they start approaching cup competitions, how that impacts kind of rotation and all that kind of stuff. But I think for us, like, whatever the case is if we do win that, like you say, Aaron, and I think it creates that kind of winning mentality. It creates that, and we've still got that ability to play our best team week in, week out. And there's no reason to think that, we can't, imagine at the end of this season, if we end up with 4th place in a cup, I mean, that would be just a phenomenal year, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
And there's no reason why we can't do that.
Even, dare I say, 5th place in the cup. That isn't the worst outcome, in my opinion. Wouldn't you say?
It's like, I think that it's do you know what? It's like damned if you do, damned if you don't. It's like, I think the fan base at the moment, we believe in this team so much. I feel like we'd be disappointed if we weren't 4th this season now because of, like the possibilities. But yeah, anyway. All right, should we leave it there, chaps? Because we've recorded a pretty long episode today. So look, if you have still stayed with us, then we really, really appreciate it, and we'll try and make the next one not so long. But there was just so much to talk about. So cool. All right, Mice, Aaron, thank you very much for your contributions as always. They were pretty good, I have to say. And thank you. And thank you everyone for joining us. Take care of yourselves. Happy New Year.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers. Bye.